This is IT4683 Taibo Case Study Draft for Team CAP. Includes Alex, Mohammed, Teresa, Ryan, and Kyle. An overview of the Taibo case includes a listing of the executive committee as shown on this slide, and they report to the board of directors. The IT organization is fairly traditional, with a system development team, an operations team, and a systems and technology team. And the management team consists of a manager for each of these three groups. And they work with the executive board. Increasingly, top management is realizing the significant impact that IT can have on the success of the enterprise. At the executive management level, business objectives are set, policies are established, and decisions are made on how to deploy and manage resources of the enterprise to execute the enterprise strategy. Taibo's strategic initiatives and projects include the following. They are going to close low-performing branches, which is almost complete. Create a web-based banking system to unload the demand for services at branch offices, which is the WeBop, which is in progress, and then develop CRM capabilities to create opportunities to cross-sell banking services, and that has been initiated. And the two main projects are the WeBop, which partially live and outsource, and it includes customer access to savings and checking applications, and eventually to loan and credit card access with a single customer interface. And the customer relationship management, CRM, will pull all customer information together to enable cross-selling of products to support account managers and other customer support staff members. The business strategy group reports to the business executive. They create these initiatives and prioritize projects to work on, but they are not technologically inclined. So information technology capability is an organization's ability by virtue of its IT assets and know-how to create business value. When the organizations play as a team, the functions are collaborated and positive value passes between the functions. In this case, the organization's capability is greater than sum of the parts, and this is what their goal is. Taibo is a medium-sized financial institution. Their core competencies are saving and checking accounts, loans, credit cards, and personal banking, plus clearing and settlement services for other banks. They've decided to downsize their physical branch network and move toward e-banking. There have been several mergers as well as acquiring outside IT services. They're outsourcing and joint ventures. They're process-oriented with emerging culture of stakeholder inclusion, but there's really no formal strategy and shifting priorities. And competing markets have compressed their profit margins and have given them a loss of market share. The effective governance of IT operational spending requires effective control of the cost base. IT assets are complex to manage and continually change due to the nature of technology and changing business requirements. With the Taibo case, some of the things that were happening was that there was a rush to market for e-banking, and they did have warning signals about the service quality of the third-party vendor that they decided to outsource with. They had help desk reports on problems not entered into user support systems. The list of complaints are increasing, and the cost of outsourcing is increasing with the demand. Resolution of customer complaints for erroneous transaction problems are not being resolved. So there are major issues in the management of the IT in security, outsourcing, and strategic alignment. IT governance is the process that ensures the efficient use of IT to achieve enterprise strategic objectives and goals. Ensuring that value is obtained from the investment in information technology is an essential component of IT governance. It involves selecting investments wisely and managing them throughout their life cycle, from inception to final retirement. And as with any facet of governance, without leadership commitment and support from the top, it is less likely to realize success. This slide covers the relationship of TIBO to IT. The main categories include IT governance. There was a lack of oversight for decisions to outsource and insufficient review of their capabilities. And there was a decision to defer audit on security or to fill the senior CISO position for oversight. In IT risk management, there was a failure to correctly forecast volume of users, and the increase in users caused problems in the quality of service delivery. Availability and response time was not within SLA, and some transactions were not processed or processed incorrectly. IT assurance. IT procedures are developed in-house with varying quality and conformance. And there is a lack of experience with acquiring packaged solutions and new technology platforms. Currently are mainly mainframe COBOL environment. IT controls. There were lack of effective reports on security issues, and the audience was not taking actions on the reports. And so when we have risk, it can threaten the organization's ability to generate profits at its target levels. And in the long term, risk can threaten an organization's sustainability. Governance and controls must be in place to ensure that projects are done on time and within budget. Additionally, controls need to make sure that the work being done aligns with their strategic direction. Effective controls will reduce risk, increase the likelihood of value delivery, and improve efficiency because there will be fewer errors and a more consistent management approach. The next couple slides are going to pull some of the relevant control objectives in COBIT that can be used in TIBO. The first one is assessment of current capability and performance. And you want to know what type currently capability and performance of solution and service delivery you have, so you can use that as a baseline against which future requirements can be compared. And you want to define the performance in terms of IT contribution to business objectives, functionality, stability, complexity, cost, strengths, and weaknesses. The maintenance and monitoring of a risk action plan is very important. You need to prioritize and plan the control activities of all levels to have risk responses identified, which includes the cost, what are the benefits, and who would be responsible for execution. These need to be approved for recommended action, and if they decide not to do it, have an acceptance of the residual risk so that they can take ownership of it. Project management approach. So depending on the size of the organization, complexity, and regulatory requirements of each project, you want to have a plan put together so that the governance of the project would include the roles, responsibilities, and accountabilities of the sponsor, the steering committee, and all the people involved, so that those responsibilities can be executed and reported on. Then we have the integrated project plan, which would be to establish a formal approved project plan covering business and information system resources, to guide project execution and control throughout the life of the project. And it needs to be maintained for the life of the project. And if there are changes, they should be approved and put within the project governance framework. The next set of control objectives include project resources. And you want to define the responsibilities, relationships, authorities, and performance criteria of project team members, and specify the basis for acquiring and assigning competent staff members and/or contractors to the project. The project risk management, you want to eliminate or minimize specific risks associated with individual projects through a systematic process of planning, identifying, analyzing, responding to, monitoring, and controlling the areas or events that have potential to cause unwanted change. Then we have a project quality plan, and you want to prepare a quality management plan that describes the project quality system and how it will be implemented. The plan should be formally reviewed and agreed to by all parties concerned, and then incorporated into the integrated project plan. Then we have project change control. We need to establish a change control system for each project so that all changes to the project baseline, cost, schedule, scope, and quality are appropriately reviewed, approved, and incorporated into the integrated project plan. Some additional control objectives include application control and auditability. And we want to implement business controls where appropriate into automated application controls such that processing is accurate, complete, timely, authorized, and auditable. Then we have the security and availability. And we want to address application security and availability requirements in response to identified risk and in line with the organization's data classification, information architecture, information security architecture, and risk tolerance. Then there's the development of application software. And we want to ensure that automated functionality is developed in accordance with design specifications, development and documentation standards, QA requirements, and approval standards, and ensure that all legal and contractual aspects are identified and addressed for application software developed by third parties. And then a software quality assurance, which will develop, resource, and execute a software QA plan to obtain the quality specified in the requirements definition and the organization's quality policies and procedures. Several more control objectives include the identification of all supplier relationships, and you want to make sure you identify all your suppliers, especially if they then outsource to another group, what their significance is and the criticality it is to your core competencies. You need to maintain formal documentation of technical and organization relationships covering the roles, responsibilities, goals, expected deliverables, and credentials of representatives of these suppliers. Supplier relationship management. You want to formalize the supplier relationship process with each of the suppliers that you have. The relationship owners should develop a working relationship on customer and supplier issues and ensure the quality of the relationship is based on trust and transparency, and this is accomplished through SLAs. The supplier risk management, you want to identify and mitigate risk related to suppliers' ability to continue effective service delivery in a secure and efficient manner on a continual basis. You want to ensure that the contracts conform to universal business standards in accordance with legal and regulatory requirements. Then you have supplier performance monitoring, and you want to establish a process to monitor service delivery to ensure that the supplier is meeting the current business requirements and continuing to adhere to the contract agreements and SLAs, and that performance is competitive with alternative suppliers and market conditions. These control objectives include an IT security plan, and you need to translate business, risk, and compliance requirements into an overall IT security plan, taking into consideration the IT infrastructure and security culture. You want to communicate security policies and procedures to stakeholders and users. Then you have security testing, surveillance, and monitoring. You want to test and monitor the IT security implementation in a proactive way. It should be accredited in a timely manner to ensure that the approved Enterprise Information Security baseline is maintained. A logging and monitoring function will enable the early prevention and/or detection and subsequent timely reporting of unusual and/or abnormal activities that may need to be addressed. We have security incident definition, and that will clearly define and communicate the characteristics of potential security incidents so they can be properly classified and treated by the incident and problem management process. Then there's malicious software prevention, detection, and correction. We want to put in preventative, detective, and corrective measures in place, especially up-to-date security patches and virus control across the organization to protect the information system and technology from viruses, worms, spyware, spam, etc. Additional control objectives include network security. And we want to use security techniques and related management procedures such as firewalls, security appliances, network segmentation, intrusion detection to authorize access and control information flows from and to networks. With the exchange of sensitive data, the exchange sensitive transaction data should only go over a trusted path or medium with controls to provide authenticity of content, proof of submission, proof of receipt, and non-repudiation of origin. IT accounting encompasses capturing and allocating actual cost according to the enterprise cost model. Variances between forecasts and actual costs should be analyzed and reported on in compliance with the enterprise's financial measurement system. The cost model maintenance should be regularly reviewed and benchmarked. The appropriateness of the cost recharge model to maintain its relevance and appropriateness to the evolving business and IT activities. The next set of relevant control objectives include a performance assessment. You want to periodically review performance against targets, analyze the cause of any deviations, and initiate remedial action to address the underlying causes. And at appropriate times, you perform root cause analysis across the deviations. For board and executive reporting, you want to develop senior management reports on IT contributions to the business, specifically in terms of the performance of the enterprise portfolio, IT-enabled investment programs, and the solution and service deliverable performance of individual programs. And then you want to include in status reports the extent to which planned objectives have been achieved, budgeted resources used, set performance targets met, and identified risk mitigated. You want to anticipate senior management's review by suggesting remedial actions for major deviations. Provide the report to senior management and solicit feedback from their review. For remedial actions, you want to identify and initiate remedial actions based on performance, monitoring, assessment, and reporting. And it includes the follow-up of all monitoring, reporting, and assessments through review, negotiation, establishment of management responses, assignment of responsibility for remediation, and tracking of the results of actions committed. The final set of control objectives to be covered or included in the study is control self-assessment. So you want to evaluate the completeness and effectiveness of management's control over IT processes, policies, and contracts through a continuing program of self-assessment. For the assurance of internal control, you want to obtain, as needed, further assurance of the completeness and effectiveness of internal controls through third-party reviews, such as audits. Internal control at third parties, assess the status of external service providers' internal controls. Confirm that external service providers comply with legal and regulatory requirements and contractual obligations. And remedial actions, you want to identify, initiate, track, and implement remedial actions arising from control assessments and reporting.
Now we're going to cover the security issue in the case study. An anonymous call to the CFO. Someone claims to have access to your customer information leaked from the enterprise systems and substantiates it with a fax containing the sensitive information, names, account managers, etc. We're going to now analyze the security risks. It's possible that the firewall weakness that O'Donnell, the director of operations, was aware of could have been responsible for the breach. It's also possible that some of the business employees that had requested administrative access could have leaked passwords or possibly leaked information. The good practices we can follow are principle of least privilege to limit the amount of people who can access this information, and separation of duties to make sure that people who are doing their job are doing the job only with the tools that they need. And ensuring that all known breaches, like the one that O'Donnell was aware of, are plugged as quickly as possible. Later on, you're informed that a breach occurred at the third party and are given a copy of the current but inadequate SLA. The data leaked because the third party used a live customer data during acceptance tests of the second phase on an insecure web server. When writing the SLA, management should have put in a multitude of clauses. When making a system that involves customer information, security is paramount, immediately behind basic function. It should have contained details on how security flaws on either end are to be arbitrated, so that when breaches do occur, blame is able to be pushed on the proper party. Security also should have been wrapped into the communication, performance tracking, and the responsibilities of the third party, because they're handling customer information and the information of the TPO company. They are responsible for a number of the security threats. It's very likely that when testing the Phase 2 credit card billing, connection information could have been used to access the test database and steal the data that was reported. It's also possible that malicious software was either present or injected into the third-party machine, which allowed the information to leak. The case study report details that the first-party systems, the TiVo systems, were very well secured and followed all proper security measures, which means the leak very likely occurred either from an insider or from someone in the third party who could have also been an insider. Going forward, there's a few pieces of advice that they should follow. Security is second only to basic function in all systems and procedures. When reporting breaches, procedures should be completely simplified so that they can be handled quickly and in a timely manner. And the example of the overworked security administrator making more reports meaningful to more people. Hold to core IT security rules, least privilege and separation of duties to ensure that people who need access have it and people who don't need the access do not have it. And all connections, including third-party servers, should be secured as well as the company assets are. The weakest link will bring down the best server.
This covers the outsourcing issue. The WeBop project was planned, but the company did not have the IT resources or skills to complete the project. Therefore, it was outsourced to have those skilled resources and the infrastructure to support the ever-increasing need for their new e-banking product. The IT department made a decision to outsource WeBop on its own. In doing so, they risked a lot without proper research of the third party. The director of IT made the decision based on how the company felt about their ability to compete in the e-banking market. Some organizations use these external service organizations for services, but they still need to be melded into the organization's overall operations and responsibility, and consequently need to be considered in the overall IT control program. The use of a service organization does not reduce management's responsibility to maintain effective internal control over financial reporting. Rather, management should evaluate controls at the service organization as well as related controls at the company when making its assessment about internal control over financial reporting. And the organization should review the activities of the service organization in arriving at a conclusion on the reliability of its own internal controls. Documentation of service organization control activities will be required for the activities of the independent auditor. The director of IT heard about the third party from a friend at a financial institute during a golf game. So there wasn't really a due diligence in really researching the outsourcing company, but they just took a friend's recommendation. Response times are unsatisfactory, and customers can only access systems during specific times during the day.
Transactions occasionally were being processed erroneously or not at all. The third party company was unable to solve the problems with the erroneously processed transactions. Therefore, the help desk reports that the third party was sending over were actually getting longer each month. This correlated with increasing bills month after month. However, the outsourcing agreement, the price for the help desk was a fixed amount per month. The control objectives emphasize the importance of documented supplier interfaces and ownership for managing the quality of relations with third parties. Third party contracts and outsourcing contracts should be clearly defined and mutually agreed upon. And before selection, the potential third party should go through a quality check to make sure that they can deliver the required services. Agreements should be made regarding continuity of services and security issues. Finally, a monitoring process should be established to ensure that the services are delivered as agreed. The help desk reports that the third party was sending over were going to the manager of user support only. As well, the third party is not holding up their end of the agreement. Outsourcing recommendations. The control objectives can be used proactively by corporations to manage their third-party relationships. For example, as an entity negotiates its IT outsourcing agreements, it can use DS2 as a guide for planning the strategic and contractual relationships between the entity and the outsourcing partners. In the service agreement with the third party, all payments and deadlines are mentioned and laid out. The help desk reports should be sent to the IT manager and they are not even being seen by him because the IT support manager was the only one seeing them, and he assumed things were being taken care of, which they were not. With the increasing bills for the help desk support from the third party, TiVo should make the third party company honor the agreement that it is a flat rate for the IT support, where the third party is trying to charge more each month for increasing problems with the application they have created. The IT Coordination Committee needs to have more involvement with the outsourcing work. Outsourced work doesn't mean that the company paying for the work doesn't have anything to do with the applications themselves. Everything has to be done hand in hand with each other. Keeping the IT framework and such in-house and just outsourcing the WeBop application causes significant problems with the development of the application, as some IT issues may not work well with other IT frameworks. Outsourcing roles needed. Audit. The research should have been done well in advance before looking to outsource the project. Allocation of resources and finances should have been already laid out. Plan and scope IT controls. Assign accountability and responsibility. Inventory relevant applications and related subsystems. Develop a preliminary project plan and obtain approval. Determine responsibility for application controls. Consider whether applications can be eliminated from scope, and identify the dependencies on the third-party service organizations, also known as the outsourcing agreements. IT management. Multiple third-party contractors should have been reached out to, as the IT department knows what they can and cannot handle in-house. Only seeking out one possible outsource would cause many problems. The CEO. He or she should know everything that went into the process of choosing the third party to do the work on the WeBop project. Assessing IT risk. Assess the inherent risk of applications and related subsystems, the nature of the technology, nature of the people, nature of the process, past experiences, significance to the financial reports, and refine the scope and update the project plan. The outsourcing roles performed. Audit. No research at all was done in choosing an outsourcing company. No financial information was talked about or agreed upon, except in the written agreement between the IT manager and the third party company. IT management. The IT manager chooses to outsource the project on his own with the IT department. He also chose the third party based on a friend's suggestion who worked for another financial company. And the CEO. He knew nothing about the third party company or the level of involvement needed between his IT department and the third party to complete the project. And the operations. These include controls over the definition, acquisition, installation, configuration, integration, and the maintenance of the IT infrastructure. Ongoing controls over operations address the day-to-day delivery of the information services, including service level management of the third-party services, system availability, customer relationship management, configuration and systems management problem, and incident management, operations management, scheduling, and facilities management. None of these were actually taken into consideration when they chose to outsource the WeBop project.
The strategic alignment issue, narrated by Alex. The questions that were dealt with in this section was to analyze the governance of the implications of how TiVo handled the outsourcing from the board of directors, executives, and IT management levels. What would be the best practices that could govern over these outsourcing contracts? Our recommendations for this solution on the strategic alignment side would be best practices to strategically align with the issue was to have communication with a combination outside the combination of the help desk logs. That would be a great start to start the conversation so they can go ahead and have this done and looked over. An organization over this organization of the positions within TiVo, going back and forth with this plan, and manage of change of vision. TiVo will need to have a more effective attachment to their businesses, including their outside businesses, as well as an IT governance addition. An IT strategic or strategy group or committee needs to be added to the business strategy team to guide on the IT side of the house and clarify all the values of IT and their investments inside of TiVo. Why was the CEO not aware of the customer complaints before the report from the Osman on how can we prevent this in the future, and what governance changes can be done to propose a resolution to this problem. First off, client complaints were directed to a very low level in the organization and was assumed to be an informational report. The outsourced management presumed that all discrepancies had already been dealt with by a third party because of the increased invoice volume for support that were received. The transaction issue was not identified and being identified to be a significant issue by the outsourced support desk due to their insufficient training. What the IT governance changes do we need to propose to solve this issue? The inception of an IT strategy group or committee to work alongside with the business strategy group to guide on IT technical issues and clarify value of IT investments is a good start for TiVo, as well as a board that begins the CRM initiative on how to better align and how to achieve between IT and the business strategy team. Then have an evident Weibo initiative. A IT strategic group or committee is needed instead of a coordination group with the business team. How can this be avoided in the future? Well, first, someone in the main office of IT and the executive team of management will need to be responsible to manage their outsourced contracts on a daily basis. Also, they have to review their service level agreements that will need to be revised with a section dealing with problems and problem management with proper escalation procedures for serious incidents like this one in this case, and client complaints that should go directly to the contract manager and not directly to IT support.
Proposed solutions. I'm going to answer some of the questions about the future of Weebop project. Should it be discontinued? Yes, the SLA was already breached by the third party and a new vendor needs to be found to cover security and accessibility concerns. Should a new partner be found or done in-house? No, a new partner should not be done in-house because system developments have been undertaken mostly in-house and based on the mainframe with a system development lifecycle methodology that was acquired some years ago and has been adjusted to suit the bank. In recent years, these methods have been found to be outdated and too slow to undertake. However, they at least have ensured reasonable documentation of systems. There's little experience in acquiring packaged solutions. Only a few of in-house team members have any experience with the client-server systems, and none have any development experiences. As far it comes for the new partner, yes, it should be found until we found a new partner. Should it continue with the current outsourcing group but with changes as listed in critical areas? Security, yes, it should definitely have changes in security. Outsourcing, no. Outsourcing can cause a lot of security issues. Strategic alignment, yes. The business strategic group has excellent documentation procedures. It maintains a strategic initiatives document that details each of the initiatives and charts progress on each. This document is distributed to the board of directors and executive committee. Here are a few recommendations for the security. Install and maintain a firewall configuration to protect cardholder data. Do not use vendor supply defaults for system passwords and other security parameters. Protect stored cardholder data. Encrypt transmission of cardholder data across open public networks. Protect all systems against malware and regularly updated antivirus software or programs. Develop and maintain secure systems and applications. Restrict access to cardholder data by business need to know. Identify and authenticate access to system components. Restrict physical access to cardholder data. Track and monitor all access to network resources and cardholder data. Regularly test security systems and processes. Maintain a policy that addresses information security for all personnel. Should we outsource WeBop to a third party? Well, it has many of disadvantages. The disadvantages are data privacy breaches, underestimating running costs of services, over-dependence on service providers, and communication issues that delay project completion. Recommendation for strategic alignment. No recommendation. The business strategy group has excellent documentation procedures. It maintains a strategic initiative document that details each of the initiatives and charts progress on each. This document is distributed to the board of directors and the executive committee. Lesson learned or struggles overcome. From the perspective of the management of IT and the WeBop project, that were the lessons learned or struggles overcome in regards to the investigations of internal control and the use of COVID framework to come up with recommended solution and decision making. Need for a senior SCISO position to improve security, tighter security processes, tighter control of third-party vendor acquisition, service quality, and incident reporting, improve SLA with a third-party vendor, better metrics collection of data and reporting of management, better integration of complex environment with shared IT services, enhancement of network platform to ease congestion, add capacity, and bring up to date, get skilled resources to manage new technologies.
The following 2 pages is a list of the references that we use to come up with our PowerPoint slides as well as supporting note documentation. We hope you enjoyed this presentation. If you have any questions, you can contact any one of the team.